I think that's what it shows us. I thought.
It's a section. Right. And so it goes like that.
Well, see, they're extending it through 2018, so that's what their thing says. So I got a note. When you're going to compete it again. So I recognize that too.
I did have something interesting happen to me a couple of weeks ago. Doing some things around the house. All of a sudden I had about 3 or 4 text messages come in so fast, one behind the other.
Who?
Stepped over itself.
He's not going to be here today. He's out of country. He sent a note to us. So.
Opened up the messenger and started reading them.
Oh, okay. Geez, that's what I was waiting on.
Asking me if these charges were.
Okay, welcome everyone. Let's call the meeting to order. Hope everybody's had a great month. I'm sorry I wasn't here last month, but I was enjoying the Albuquerque Balloon Festival. So, if you haven't been to that, it's worth going. So, it's pretty impressive. Let me start off with reading the purpose statement. The purpose of the Citizens Advisory Committee is to ensure the capital, maintenance, and public transportation projects and programs approved by the voters during November 2nd, 2004 and November 6th, 2012 elections are accomplished with PPRTA funds. This committee reports directly to the Board of Directors. All right. So we have a quorum. Rick?
All alternates can vote?
Yep, all alternates can vote. Okay, very good. Thank you. Do I hear a motion for approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Rick and Larry? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Any public comment for items not on the agenda? Any from the committee members? Anyone from the audience? Cheryl?
Is there a status on the brochure? We saw a draft some time ago, and I have never seen a final on the accomplishments brochure. Report.
That's out.
Cheryl, would you like one?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Mine's punched. I want one that's punched to replace it.
Rick's going to get her one.
Yeah, we saw a draft of that brochure earlier on this year, and then I didn't
Yeah, it's published, so we'll get you one.
Did I not hand it out at a meeting?
Yes.
Spring?
We
Yes,
had them
you did.
order on the table, but we never really passed them around.
Okay.
I don't think I got one.
Okay. Well, it's a good report. Thanks. We'll make sure everybody that needs one get one after the meeting. Okay, we'll move on. Approval of the minutes from the October 4th meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question on the minutes.
Okay.
On the back page, on the list of attendees, we've got Cindy Tompkins listed as City of Manitou Springs, but on everything else, we show no representatives from the City of Manitou Springs.
She's right,
So
Ma.
was that placed was her name placed against the wrong entity?
A typo will get
Typo.
fixed.
Okay.
All right.
With that correction, do I hear, Cheryl, you move to approve? I hear a second. Mr. Tobias? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. All right, financial reports. Ms. Bev.
Good afternoon. We received the August sales and use tax there, like around September 11th, and it was $8.7 million. and compared to the monthly budget of almost $9.7 million, we were $982,000 below that. The monthly budgets are spread based on the prior year's sales and use tax. So what happened here is in the prior year, 2016, for that month, there were a lot of sales of vehicles because of a storm that came through here in the hailstorm. So in a way, it's more that 2016 was higher than it really normally would have been. So we'll probably see, that even out then going forward. So then year-to-date, we're at $1,074,000. So then compared to last year actual, we're still ahead almost $4.6 million. So the rest of the pages are just the revenue and expense summary compared to budget. And are there any questions?
Any questions for Bev on the financials?
Okay.
Thank you, Beth. All right, next item, our budget presentation, 2018 budget.
Okay, so this is the budget workshop, and then you'll be making a recommendation to the board whether to accept the budget as presented, or if you see some things that you want to see different, then put that in your recommendation. So on page 4 is kind of the assumption page, the revenue projection page. And so we estimated 2018 sales and use tax revenue at $100 million, and we're usually always conservative there. We expect it to be maybe a little higher this year at the end of the year, but I don't know if you remember last year, we started out at the beginning of the budget process at $89 million, and then we had a first and second budget amendment that brought in more revenue because it looked like it was going to be so much higher. So we'll do that sort of thing this year too. If in 2018 our revenue looks like it's going to really surpass this $100 million. So then we have estimated interest of $1.1 million, and then we pay the state some collection fees of $270,000. We're estimating administrative costs of $746,000, and it's like the third to last page is the summary of that. But anything we don't spend there goes back into the revenue allocation the next year. And usually we have quite a bit of savings there, but we have to estimate a lot of expenditures that could happen. And then we have a reserve adjustment, which is 10% of the net revenue, budgeted revenue, and since revenue is going up slightly, we'll add about $76,000 to reserve. And then the net revenue of $108,111 is allocated 10% to transit, 35% to maintenance, and 55% to capital. And you can just see the flow of the numbers on the rest of that page. Transit's estimating farebox revenue of $3,372,000, and that's down towards the bottom of the page. Then page 5 through 7 compares the final 2017 budget in the first column to the draft budget presented today. And there's the differences there. And then 8 through 10, pages 8 through 10, start out with the first column being the estimated 2017 carryover, then the 2018 draft budget, and then any line item transfers that we know of for next year so far, and then the total. So the budget that we present to the board and ask them to appropriate includes the estimated carryover from 2017. And in total, that budget on page 10, the total funds we're really asking for are $210,362,000, which it includes $210 million. That includes $106 million from 2017 as an estimated carryover. And that's just basically the overview of the budget. Transit and the city, county, Manitou, and RAMA have their attachments here. And some of the member governments are here to give their presentations. Should we start with El Paso County? Do you want to do that, Jennifer? No?
We'll just go in the order of the
Oh, wait, we should probably start with transit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we can go in the order. There's not any small member governments here that would just be waiting so long, so sometimes we take them out of order, but today it doesn't really matter.
Good afternoon, Craig Blewett, Transit Services Manager with the City of Colorado Springs. Thank you. In terms of our budget presentation, I do have some help here as well, so if you ask a question that's more than an inch deep, I'll probably call on Lan Rao or possibly Brian Vituli as well. So our budget as we're proposing is in your packet. I do have some slides to put those that budget into context. And is there a way to access that? Maybe it's ready.
Is it this one? No. Is this yours?
Whatever the flash drive was. Then you know the name of the flash drive?
Oh, there it is.
You got it? Okay.
2018 budget.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Sorry about that. I can't see from over there.
Appreciate it.
PowerPoint 2010.
There we go. Yes. I could use all the help I can get. Okay. Again, this is to really put our budget into context, as you see in your agenda packet. This way. There we go. The services we provide, just as a quick refresher, is the fixed route bus system, 7 days a week, 362 days a year, 3 million passenger trips last year, 2016. We also do specialized transportation for people with disabilities and senior citizens. We have an ADA required service. So basically, within 3/4 of a mile where we operate bus routes and the times we operate bus routes, we need to provide up to door-to-door transportation for people with disabilities. And so we do that also 7 days a week, 362 days a year. We also fund some nonprofits here in town. So that would be the Fountain Valley Senior Center, AmbliCap, Silver Key, and Community Intersections, to go above and beyond those ADA requirements for people with disabilities and seniors. So in the geographic area we do not serve, we look to them to serve. And also, if the needs of the client are greater than door-to-door, for example, going into the home to help someone with their trip, they will do that as well. So it's above and beyond the ADA requirements. Question?
Yes. Just a real quick. On the Metro Mobility, you take them to their location, not to a bus stop. Is that correct?
Currently, yes.
Okay.
And Metro Rides is our van pool program, commuter program, primarily goes to Denver. So people who live here in El Paso County go to Denver for work and come back. And we also do, as part of that, do carpool, school pool program, and bicycle encouragement. So we do have a carpool program online that people can utilize to find someone to share rides with. 2018 strategic plan that applies to our budget is with regard to investing in infrastructure. And so maintain 90%, and those measures of success are on-time performance and ridership. We have, we'll show both our operating budget and our capital budget. From an operating side, this is the sources of revenue. So PPRTA is a very important source of revenue for us. 42% of our operating budget comes from PPRTA. City General Fund at $5.9 million. Federal grants for operating at $4 million. And then fare and advertising, so the fare that the riders pay, plus our advertising budget. The general fund, the maintenance of effort that was part of the initial vote, is $5.7 million. We are above that now. This current year, 2017, we met that maintenance of effort. We've added about $180,000 of city funding for next year. The transit, so this is where the money goes. Fixed route is 58%. Our ADA paratransit service is 23%. Specialized transportation for the above and beyond, ADA 5%, van pool 3%, and administration 11%. Capital side, a lot of federal grants in terms of the revenue. So about 2/3 is from federal grants. State grants is 13%. PPRTA also matches much of our federal funding, capital projects. So very important again for the PPRTA side. And then this is where the money goes. Facility improvements, rolling stock, and IT. There are buses, we replace buses, but there's also some expansion buses enabled to us expand service next year, 2018. And facilities are starting to see higher facilities costs. We're starting to include the new downtown center in this, as well as our additional storage space that we need for bus storage. As we grow our fleet, we need more area to store the buses. Excuse me. This is our rolling 5-year financial forecast. So the expenditures are in gold, the revenue is in blue, and then our carryover reserve is in gray. Our target reserve is in green. So we currently have more funding and reserves than we need in terms of our target reserve, but we are responsibly spending that down, adding service. But over the 5 years, we will stay within our reserve or maintain our reserve over time. So this is a rolling 5-year forecast. We update it on a regular basis.
Greg?
Yes.
Anticipating a question, but your expenditures are exceeding revenue, and you're using that carryover to match that right now, to cover that right now, right?
Yes.
So what do you, in 22, that it meets your reserve line, do you anticipate turning around the gold and the blue, or just digging into the reserve and maintaining it?
So your question is, are we going to drive the service into the ground beyond 5 years?
I did not say that. I have better confidence in you than that.
But that's your question. I mean, and that's a good question. And the answer is no. What we're trying to do is meet the targeted reserve amount, and we really should provide service up to that amount. And so we're working to do that. But we're going to keep an eye on this chart. And if we're going to continue on this trend, we will at some point need to reduce our expenditures to match our revenue. What this also means is as we add service, and we've talked about we're proposing to add up to $1.4 million in service next year from PPRTA funds. As we do that, we're not going to add all the service we could in our reserve for next year. We want to make sure that that reserve extends out going forward. So again, we're trying to be responsible in how we go about that. PPRTA budget, and this is a lot of numbers, but what this shows is really a comparison between the 2017 original budget and what's being proposed for 2018 and the differences in those amounts. So that will give you a good side-by-side in terms of the changes from current year to as proposed for next year. And this shows our total proposed budget for 2018, including city and PPRTA. So it's really difficult to just look at our PPRTA budget and get a sense of what we're trying to accomplish. It's really the city and PPRTA budget together that shows the complete package of local funding and how we're intending to spend that. And in terms of how well we're serving the community, there's 3 key metrics that you can use in terms of geographic coverage, how much of the urbanized area, and that's what we get the federal funding for is urbanized area. How much of that are we serving? What's the frequency of our service? And what's the span, the days of the week and the hours of the day? Now, to put this into context, so in terms of quarter-mile service, about 1/3 of the urbanized area is covered. And if you look at 3/4 of a mile, which is about a 20-minute walk with street crossings, is about 60% of the urbanized area. But we have made substantial gains in the last 7 years. So in 2010, the revenue service hours, and that's really the supply of buses we're putting out on the road, was 98,000 hours. We're now up to 173,000 hours. So a pretty healthy increase there. Number of routes that are operating at a higher frequency of 30 minutes or better, we've more than doubled. Evening routes, we had 0 in 2010. We're now at 15. And the days of the week, we're operating all but 3 days of the year. Just the extent of our service. We go as north as Research Parkway, as far east as the Powers Corridor, south to Widefield Security, and west to Manitou. And this is our service frequency. A little tough to read, but so blue is 60 minutes. So a bus comes along every 60 minutes. Red is bus comes along every 30 minutes. Then we have 20 minutes primarily in the Manitou area. And then we have, at this point in time, 3 15-minute corridors, which we call high-capacity or high-frequency corridors. That's the Nevada corridor, the Platte-Boulder corridor connecting downtown to Citadel. And then on the eastern flank, we have North Academy this year. So with our $1.4 million of additional funding available next year, one of the basic choices we have is comparing this map. Now look at, we can either do a route, so let's see my cursor working. The one option would be adding Route 1, which goes to the southeast part of town, directly to the downtown terminal. Or option 2, instead of that, we add South Academy as a 15-minute service. So we've offered that choice to the public, and we're doing some outreach and talking to some transit community groups to see what the preference is. It's kind of an either-or situation. Both provide benefits to Southeast Colorado Springs, which is a key area to improve transit service too.
Question. On
Yes.
that South Academy option, the termination is at PPCC, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, really, we go from transfer station to transfer station. So we have a transfer station at Citadel Mall, and then we have one at the Pikes Peak Community College on the south. Interesting choice. I think the pros for this one is Academy is more of an established corridor. The other route, see if I can go up easily, is Route 1, and that really goes along 5 or 6 different street segments and kind of weaves its way back to downtown. There's no direct way for a bus to go that makes sense from southeast to downtown. It is to have more ridership, though. Route 1 has more ridership than South Academy, so that's what it has going for it. So process on that, we're going to get some more input and then have formal public meetings in January and February. Yes, sir.
Is there a push though on South Academy to develop that?
Yes.
Overhead electrical, all that sort of stuff?
Yes.
So that route down through there might make more sense because of that?
Yes, in terms of encouraging, I guess, good urban renewal, yes, and urban development, yes. And this is Saturday service. Where we are, most of it is 60-minute service. The Reds are 30-minute service. And we do have some options for improving that for next year, including a look at the route that goes in Security Wide Field and start providing that on Saturdays as well. Next steps, where we're headed, service planning. Again, looking at hybrids, so that's the modified grid, hub and spoke. So we have 4 transfer stations. This is still kind of hub and spoke to those. But we are overlaying on that some more grid. And I did not point one other thing out on this one here. There's a new route on Union Boulevard from Memorial Hospital up to the north to join Academy, and then also go up to Memorial Hospital North. And so a basic service there, what we're looking at is hourly service, but not all days. So there'll be a morning peak and an evening peak and a midday service as well. And we're also negotiating and working with the hospitals to see if with a partnership they could make it an even better service than that.
I should probably know this. Where's the fourth hub?
Pardon me?
Where's the fourth hub?
Good question. Voyager Parkway, so up near Chapel Hills Mall. Okay, so the grid on top of the hub and spoke, capital improvements, our downtown transit center, very exciting project. Bus storage facilities I mentioned, and vehicle replacement and expansion. Partnerships we're working with the county, Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments, nonprofits, on our consolidated call centers. So that's the call center for Silver Key and Fountain Valley and so forth, for a benefit of both customers and more efficient service. Partnerships with Northern Hospitals that I mentioned. Our student pass programs, we did start our student pass programs with both UCCS and Colorado College this year. We're working with Pikes Peak Community College as well. And Colorado Tech, I think there's another college as well in town. And then also we've established a corporate sponsorship program so someone can buy naming rights of stop or of a route, for example. So again, this is really context for what's in your packet. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
On the corporate sponsorship stuff, some places I've lived, companies gave their employees a transportation incentive or something that would promote use of public transportation. And a lot of our industrial, large population center type businesses are up off Voyager on the north end of town with, lots and lots of people. Is there anything in that corporate sponsorship that would, something along that line to try to encourage companies to encourage their riders to use the system?
Good question. And, one of the things I meant to say, what guides us in terms of what improvements to the service we're proposing is the regional transit plan. So there's a 2040 transportation plan for the Pikes Peak region. There's a transit component of that. What that plan primarily says is improve service in our existing service area. So there's a lot of improvements in terms of frequency that we're adding, and evening service and Saturday service really focuses on that objective. But also look to expand service where you can have a partnership and where you have a good likelihood of success. And so that's where the working with the hospitals is coming in. And I think, Jim, your point, with businesses, can we do the same thing? And the answer is yes. So they could have naming rights to a route, perhaps. It's the name of the shopping center or the business that we're going to. But also, as part of our FARE study, F-A-R-E, we're doing this year, we're looking at negotiated arrangements like that. A lot of things work where if they're all in, that's the key behind College Pass program, is each student pays as part of their student fees $5 per student per semester. That allows all the students to ride unlimited for free, for no additional charge during that semester. So with a business like that, if you can get all in where everyone pays something for a pass, you at least are revenue neutral and hopefully you're revenue positive and adding service.
And the $5 figure was just kind of a figure you threw out there, right?
Actually, it was a good number. What the $5 per semester per student money amount is based on estimating what our current use are by the three colleges, which are UCCS, Pikes Peak Community College, and Colorado College. So we have current students who are riding today. How much revenue are we getting from them? And if we then make that same revenue over all those three institutions by all in, we're good. So we just wanted to be revenue neutral, and that's what we calculated it would cost to be revenue neutral.
Well, that seems why are we having problems selling?
Actually, at UCCS, I think they called that the deal of the century. I believe it was so they recognize how good of a deal that is. So they were in right away. The hesitation on the part of Pikes Peak Community College is we do not currently serve their northern campus, and so they could be charging students for a service that isn't beneficial to them. So we're working with them, with the hospitals, to look at some different service options up there and see if we can provide something that would enable them to.
Yeah, there's just a burst of growth up there now that they've started that abandoned shopping center and the housing and all along Interquest there. It's crazy growth up there. So
we have to be a little cautious without getting too much detail. But when we have a bus route, regular bus route, we need to provide ADA service along with that. And that doubles the cost of that service. Initially, what we're looking at is an express transit service that would not have stops along the way. With an express service, we do not need to provide ADA. Now, that doesn't mean we don't care about disabled folks, but we're trying to introduce a service in a cost-effective way, and we could grow that into a regular service in the future if that's what makes sense.
good model.
Pardon me? Yeah, that would be an express service to the hospital, yes. So that's a great point. So that's what we use the Amblicab and Silver Key in Fountain Valley for, to augment that. For this year, we actually have a contract with Amblicab where the additional funding was initially exclusively for disabled, only going to those hospitals and medical facilities. They actually weren't generating enough trips, so we freed that up a little bit. But they have told us that every request they get from a disabled person, they're providing a trip to. So we can still do that in that fashion. But as I mentioned, I think in terms of getting into it, it costs half as much to enter the market, and then we can see where we go from there.
Any other questions for Craig?
Yes, sir.
The ADA, when you say you go, was it 3/4 of a mile from a
Yes.
route? Is that mandated or governed, or is there a window that you have? Like, is it 3/4 of a mile up to 3 miles, or is it just 3/4 of a mile?
We actually use GIS to take 3/4 of a mile to the inch, because if we allow someone who's 3/4 of a mile plus a block, then why not one more block, then why one more block? And that's where we augment with that other service. We stick strictly to that 3/4 of a mile. And every trip that's requested, we have to provide within a certain plus or minus hour of window. So it's a big obligation. Obviously, it's an important service as well. Did I miss anything? Good.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Boss did good, in other words.
Good job.
All right, city.
Good afternoon, Mike Chavez, City Engineering. If you'll turn to page 14 of the budget. So the city is looking at a budget for 2018 of $38.9 million for capital, $24.8 million for maintenance, and then transit just got covered. The next next page, it's a table of the projects that we have going, either continuing or starting in 2018. We've got a lot of projects that are multi-year, so those have some associated carryover with. And then there's a few projects we're trying to start in 18 that we're funding. We got the main projects. We got the Parks Trails project listed, and then our programs and transit, their capital expenditures. And then the last one is some money from the old original RTA 1, which we'll actually be addressing later in the line item transfer. Any questions on the table or programs? Then, well,
Go ahead.
Mike, Pikes Peak Avenue, you transferred some money.
And the speaker.
You transferred several $1 million. Right now, you've got the project up to $11 million budgeted for the 2018 budget with the carryover. The total project is only like 12.7 million. I've forgotten the number, but it doesn't make any difference. Does that mean by the end of this year, we're going to have 18, we're going to have a finished project?
at the end of, we probably go into 19, maybe spring of 2019.
So you do think you're going to spend that?
Oh, yeah, we'll spend it. So the total Pikes Peak budget is about 17.2 million with a design and right-of-way and everything.
Is it?
It's pretty high.
Yeah.
Well, I knew it was a lot higher, but I didn't know it had gone up that much.
Yeah, no, we made a presentation on,
I
yeah.
thought PPRTA of it, part of it, though, was only like 12.7.
Well, are you talking Pikes Peak or are you talking West Colorado?
Pikes Peak.
Okay, no, it's 17.1. And we actually came in a little lower because the bid was pretty favorable. So we've got funding planned into 19.
Okay.
So we'll have to do some adjustments in 18 to supplement that million that I transferred out last month.
I forgot how much it was. I just.
I've got a couple of questions. The Las Vegas Street Royer crossing has been on you guys' list for a couple of years now.
We're dealing with the railroad,
Okay,
and that's kind of a little unknown.
so you're just waiting?
Yeah, we've got the design pretty much done. We're trying to get some IGA. I believe we're working with the county on an IGA because there's county-city boundaries there, and then some issues with the railroad.
Okay.
We're close. I think we're looking at going to PUC here soon, and that'll be kind of a big step to get this to go to actual construction.
Okay. In your trail projects, any of that money in there headed going towards a pedestrian bridge over railroad tracks?
I think we talked that there's, what was it, 3.5 million was the cap?
Yes.
So that's, we've been allocating parts of that, but we haven't hit that yet. But, so,
In your descriptions, you don't mention that any of that goes to the PED bridge. So should we expect trail money again to go towards a PED bridge sometime during the course of this year?
yes, so like I said, up to that max that we've said we would use.
Okay.
I can, yeah, not, okay.
For your Rock Island Trail corridor improvements, you now got $1 million in there. That's a lot of money to fix trails.
Yeah.
So what's in there that we don't see?
Boy, let me see. That is, what's there? It's a pretty good stretch. What's that?
It's Paseo West to the Greenway, is it not?
I believe so. It just they I think when I was talking to Steve with Parks, they were getting close to being able to put a bid package out. I can maybe get some more detail for the board meeting.
It just, I mean, in your description, it talks about, tier 1 stuff, but it's not very specific. But $1 million is a lot of work on a trail if you're not relocating one entirely, in my opinion. So I'm just kind of wondering, is this a generic description and we're going to get surprised by, because you actually carried over more than you have in your budget. So it doesn't appear that as much work was done this past year. So.
No, they like I said.
As I understand it, it's establishing a new trail. Right now, the Rock Island stops at Paseo, and they've finally gotten an agreement with the railroad to let them use land between Paseo and the Greenway Trail downtown
Okay,
and
make
this
that
is
connection.
Make that connection.
Okay, let's just hope
Is
that's.
that along the same route that they used to be considering for the east-west corridor?
Yes.
Okay. Figured.
Okay.
So, and I'll get a little more detail, so
I
that,
worked very hard to stop that.
I'm just saying.
Quick question on that. I thought the city had acquired the railroad right-of-way through that area. Is that not true?
I thought so also.
I'm not familiar enough, but I'll get some info on that and come back with some more detail as to what the area is and what they're looking at doing.
All right, and then I've got a question on in your description on page 21 for CY roadway safety and traffic operations. It appears, and correct me if I didn't do the math properly, but you guys are going to spend $2 million for landscaping out of roadway safety and traffic operations for Cimarron I-25 area. Nowhere in the description of that or scope of that project does it say anything about landscaping, for one. Two, the next question would be, why the hell isn't the CDOT paying for that landscaping, and why are we contributing? You've already got up to $8 million or so that the city's contributed and RTA's contributed towards that intersection along with the county and other folks. Now we're going to spend another $2 million on landscaping out of RTA capital.
It's almost 3 million.
Kathleen's not here. Let me check.
And when that was presented, I think landscaping the question was asked about landscaping and why we were putting the other money into it. And it wasn't just the city, the county also contributed to it.
I believe we're looking at putting in $750 for landscaping in 18, and I'm not sure the 1.6 what that was. If that went to the interchange, but I'm not real sure if that was landscaping or not. So that one I'll have to probably get more. Yes.
The 1.6 is another payment to CDOT on our intergovernmental agreement.
For Cimarron?
For the interchange,
Okay.
not landscaping.
Okay. Okay.
That's the contribution towards that total of $8 million or something?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And then there's $750 that we're looking at going to
So
landscaping.
$750 going to,
1.5 million in landscaping.
you have to complete the 1.5
Yeah.
million.
So the city's putting in the other $750 of general fund money. And I believe we put it in here to, for discussion. Now, unfortunately, I'm not real familiar with all the details, so may have to have Kathleen.
It just bothers me that we're taking RTA capital money for roadway safety and traffic operations, which could be, in my opinion, more appropriately spent around this town, fixing unsafe intersections and stuff. And why wasn't landscaping considered into the project, and what's CDOT paying for it, and why aren't they fixing it? I mean, I guess somebody's can help me out there. That would.
I know part of the issue is if CDOT. Part of the issue is if CDOT landscaped it the way they wanted to, it would all be concrete and dirt, and the city considers that a key gateway into the city. So that's why the city's putting in additional money to get it landscaped to the way they want, because CDOT landscaping is basically no maintenance.
Yeah.
Whether that should come out of safety money or not, I think that's another issue, but that's why the city is wanting it, is having to pay above and beyond what CDOT would for nice landscaping.
An example is Woodman Road, yeah. Okay.
Well, that goes to the point. Now, you said this is coming out of general fund money, not out of RTA money?
Well, we're splitting. There's $1.5 million in landscaping that the city's.
So half is general fund.
And half is
RTA. And to Jim's point, I agree that, especially given in the eastern part of Colorado Springs, the poor condition of the roadways and intersections, especially the one that you and I talked about last month, I think he's got a valid point that this could probably be better spent. It's one thing for the city to contribute out of the general fund. Obviously, they can do whatever they want with that. The RTA money and the appropriateness of that money it's a good question and discussion to have, and it's unfortunate Kathleen's not here to provide the information we need.
Can I voice an opinion? In a few years, you're going to have a chance to vote. We saw a tremendous increase in the number of, quote, open-ended type of issues on the ballot listed as A-type projects. And they were accepted by the voter. I don't approve of them for the simple reason, and I am not personally familiar, but there was an intersection that was improved in lieu of the one at Research and Powers, and there are a number of people up there, including some politicals, that are still trying to figure out why that was overlooked and money was given to another intersection. There are apparently some issues at that intersection that are safety issues. So I have an issue with the fact that we have so many things, like Jim brought up a certain bridge and the history of it. I wonder where the money's really going to go. I think that was a question that Jim was more politically correct, or
Do you mean when there's open-ended, less descriptive?
The programs themselves lend themselves to less description than description, and then we've had this conversation that's voter approved, and we're not going to change it here. But I'm just wondering if there's not another pot of money that would better, one of those programs that would better suit landscaping, other than taking the entire pot of money that you have allocated for that year, all going towards landscaping, or which leaves no money in the citywide roadway safety and traffic operations pot of money, because it's either going to the CDOT payment that we've already agreed to by the IGA, or it's going to landscaping. So my question is we're not doing any roadway safety?
No. I think.
Parks and Rec, maybe?
No, I think, I don't think we're using that 2.6 all on Cimarron. There's money for.
Well, there's a balance of 249,000 for spot improvements, so.
Yeah, that's the third
piece, okay.
So 2.6, almost $2.7 million for roadway safety and traffic ops, and we're really only going to spend about 250,000.
It's about 20%.
Those are the three pieces. The 1.68 is, I think, the last year of the board's commitment to help CDOT with that interchange.
Right.
By a three-way IGA. Then the city's asking for a new additional 750,000 for half of the $1.5 million estimate for landscaping. We'll need to have a new three-way IGA for that before we spend it. And then the third piece is the 249.
$250,000.
I'm trying to figure out how the money that's going for landscaping fits under the scope and description of the area, because it just flat out doesn't.
That was kind of my point, but yet, so that struck out, thinking and looking at the description of that program, and then seeing what we're actually spending the money for, just didn't set well with me, but that's just my opinion.
And you'll be, voicing those to the board, so.
I will. Well, actually, I'll voice the consensus of this committee,
Right.
not just my opinion, and so it's where we go from there. But
We had the same discussion with CDOT and I-25 and Fillmore.
We've had, several times.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, John?
Yeah, Jim, I concur with your point of view on this, and I'm not terribly comfortable with it.
I guess I don't really have a problem with the landscaping itself, because it is a gateway. I think that's legit. It's just, where is it, what's the perception of where, and what pot is it lined under? And maybe there's not a better one, I don't know.
Do you mean which PPRTA pot?
Yeah, which one of the city's approved programs does it fall under?
Obviously, landscaping probably doesn't apply to safety, but I guess the definitional hurdle you need to agree to or not is whether or not the landscaping fits in traffic operations.
Yes.
It doesn't. I've not landscaped the street.
It could be distracting to traffic operators. No. All right, Scott, go ahead.
There's more comment. I know at one point we agreed that the funding for that interchange would come out of this specific program because it was, the overall project was considered congestion relief and safety improvements. The landscaping is what's sticking out now because that's always the last piece of the construction. But I'm not sure if this all fits within what was originally agreed to be part of that or if this is above and beyond that. But landscaping is typically part of all of the city's roadway projects. It just happens to be the last part that's put in.
Good point. Good point. Tony?
I just wanted to add in a point that landscaping absolutely does apply to safety. It proper landscaping cuts down on erosion, and it also makes for better view lines when you're approaching an intersection. Proper landscaping. So I think it absolutely does apply to safety, and to say that it doesn't is missing some points.
Robert Moses, father of the Parkway.
No. Okay.
Would you,
I'm from Western New York, that's why.
looking at the top of page 21, would you feel more comfortable if the city was agreeable, and Mike would have to check with Kathleen, to move the 750 up to the citywide intersection improvements?
Yes.
It might, but Scott made a good point, is that if the rest of the project and the RTA and city contribution to that intersection came from this pot, it makes sense to keep it whole. And I neglected to think back about where some of the original money was coming from. So if that's the case, then it's probably sense from an accounting and an accountability, transparency, is to leave it all in one place. It doesn't change my initial opinion, but anyway, I'm okay with leaving it, given Scott's additional information that I'd forgotten about. So, everybody else okay with that? Any other questions from anybody else? I have one other one. On page 22, traffic signal upgrades. I think maybe back in September, we had a little bit of discussion about some traffic signal upgrades. Is the Platte and Murray, hasn't that been done in the last 10 years?
I checked in it, no.
So was it the one before Murray? I mean, or was it the one after Murray down there where C3Com and all those? Where?
It wasn't signal upgrades, they added the cameras. That was what it was.
Is that what?
I can't remember, but I know that,
You checked on
I
that
checked on that one and it hadn't
So
been.
they had added the medians there, and
Okay.
they had the red light cameras in there.
Okay.
That's what that was.
So the old, just a minute, the old Ranch Road and Voyager, agree that intersection needs some work, but what about that section of road where it goes to 2-lane there, that goes, as you start Old Ranch Road, it goes through that neighborhood, at the end of that neighborhood, down by the creek down there, it goes into 2-lane and takes you all the way over to Voyager. Is that on anybody's radar?
Yes, it is. That was actually, I think, a candidate for an RT project. I think it dropped out, but it's something we are aware of.
Improve the intersection with the design in mind of that eventually coming more than a 2-lane road right there?
Yes, I believe.
You would think so?
Yeah.
Okay. Tom?
Well, as long as we're into this, the Centennial and Garden of the Gods, beautiful interchange now. What in the world needs to be done with new signals?
New signals. They didn't do anything to signals.
Signals are beautiful. I drive through it today. What else is needed? There's cameras or signals?
And I'm trying to think. I drive through all the time. They're probably old. They're probably the original.
It's like what's going on at Constitution and Murray right now. The intersection doesn't serve the level of service anymore, even though it was kind of redone not too long ago. But the poles need to be moved to accommodate the traffic flow through the intersection better.
There's sure nice if it's in
Okay. Anybody else, Larry, you have?
The 8th and Cimarron reconstruct, now were those some traffic lights and poles not included in the Cimarron reconstruction project then?
No, because I think they actually cut the project short to keep 8th out of it. Now, they did do that, that little road, I forget what, yeah, but.
The actual 8th and Cimarron?
Yeah, they didn't do much, no. That was another several million, I forget how much to try to add that in. So CDOT didn't have it.
All right, any other?
They didn't want to allocate it.
David?
What's the schedule for replacing the bridges on Circle? I mean, those, you go underneath on Hancock and it's been rehabilitated underneath, but yet you still see raw rebar and everything.
Yes, so we have been doing some rehabilitation in phases. We did the piers and then the pier caps. What we're going to start now is, and that was done mostly with maintenance, and actually we had a grant to do the pier caps. What we're looking at doing is we're going to rehabilitate the structure, the decks, under this RTA program, but we're actually going to start the design this year, allocating some money. We're going to actually look at, do we rehabilitate it or do we replace them in whole, similar to what we did on Academy. So we'll start a design in 18, and we'll have the designer look at that. And if
The elevated bridge?
yes, there's really 4 bridges. And so the construction money isn't really slated for about a couple years out, but we wanted to get going on the design to get a better handle on
Those
it.
bridges over both the canal or
It goes over
and the railroad
tracks, canal, and Hancock.
The other thing you can do is go,
Well, it also
you and
goes
me,
for
Lord, you and
boundary.
me. Well, I mean, because I can remember riding a school bus over that bridge when it was built.
Uh-huh.
And it just, when you go underneath it, it's coming apart. And I don't know if it's because of the age.
Yes, they're old. They're, and that's why we're moving it up, because we've done some work on the piers and the pier caps, but we had an issue where we closed it down because the actual rocker that bearings that are sitting on had kind of tipped over. So we got those fixed in an interim basis. But we do want to get in there and either fix it or replace it. So we'll be looking at that.
Chloride's eating it up too.
What's that?
All the matte chloride they dump on it when it snows, it's eating it up.
Yeah, that's probably.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Quick question on the signals. Do any of the intersections listed in there have other capital projects associated with them in the RTA?
I'm not sure of that. There may be. I mean, these are pretty much independent of if we got improvements planned, geometric improvements. Those are usually a project, but the signal replacements are kind of usually standalone.
I understand, but I want to make certain that there's not an intersection improvement coming that is not well coordinated with the new signal placements.
No. We're keeping an eye on that.
ADA's included now.
Yes.
Is the one at 8th and Cimarron, why wasn't that covered under the contract for the intersection? Because they literally redesigned the traffic flow northbound on 8th.
CDOT didn't want to pay for it.
Well, I'm just wondering, well, they got a heck of a contract price, really, all told. And I thought, is this just an upgrade, or are they going to change the signalization? Because I don't agree with their signal, or they're changing that one lane. I think they should have made a specific turn lane. You cut from, if you're coming out of Motor City going north on 8th Street, you go from 2 lanes down to 1. Either you go that way, and then just past where you turn off to get on the interstate, you go back to 2 lanes. So you have a bottleneck there. That's a
Before you get to Cimarron, you can go 8th Street.
That's where you bottleneck. It literally, 2 lanes of traffic coming out of Motor City or whatever, coming north on 8th. There's a stretch of probably 400 feet that you're in 2 lanes. And you better be in the right lane, because there's no way to go from one lane to the other. It's that busy. And that's water in the bridge, and it's just my observation after the fact. I can't say anything other than that it's a tremendous bottleneck, and I've seen a lot of near accidents, and I don't travel there that much.
I think it is a little confusing if both lanes go right on that new cut through. So if you're even in the center lane or in the left lane, you can make a right turn. You can, because both those lanes
I
go
think you're
right.
talking about two different parts of the intersection. You're talking 8th Street on 8th Street.
Yeah, I'm talking on
I'm
8th.
talking about going 8th Street onto Cimarron to go toward the highway.
We're not going to solve that
Yeah.
issue.
Well, let me just say that we'll monitor the operations of that whole area and make adjustments signal-wise, and also if there's some lane reconfiguration that needs to be done, that'll be looked at.
Are they going to upgrade it? That's what I'm asking.
So they're upgrading the signal,
So
the
they've
poles.
just put in new poles and things. They just put them in
Let's redo it.
3 years ago.
All right. Any other questions on the capital portion of the city's proposed 2018 budget? Okay, seeing none, any questions on the maintenance program for the city? Page 24. Seeing none. County. Thank you, Mike. Hi, Jennifer.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Mike, for warming them up for me. Jennifer Irvin, County Engineer. Just going to walk you through my memo, and if you have any questions, please stop me. Just wanted to mention the first part is our first round of capital projects, 2005 to 2014. As you can see, we have a couple of projects that, as you know, are substantially complete, Mark Shuffle and Baptist. Both of those were closing out, and on Baptist we have some permitting requirements that go through 2018. So we're, of course, not having any budget allocation to those projects, but we do have the carryover which we're carrying, and we'll be hopefully closing out any final items on those in 2018. The other third item, Meridian Road, I'll talk about later, but that one is being combined with the US 24 intersections, which are right adjacent, and so we've been talking about this one. This one should be going to construction in 2018, and so we're combining that and being more cost efficient by using that money in conjunction with the other improvement there at the intersection. So that should be underway next year. So just want to give you an update on those. And again, any leftover monies from Mark Shuffle and Baptist will move to Meridian, and then once we have Meridian complete, we'll be putting those into the pool. Our 2015 to 24 capital program, we're showing you the new budget allocation. Essentially, those monies are going to projects that we either have started or plan to start either sometime next year or in early 2019. But many of these projects, and you'll see we have a large carryover for 2017, and I just wanted to mention part of that is because we have several projects going into construction in 2018. So you'll see that number as far as our budget start to come down significantly in 2018. And just want to mention that we have several of these projects as well under design internally in-house, and so you're not seeing some of that budget being spent right away because we're in design in-house and are trying to maximize that use in the ground through the construction. So you'll be seeing that come down in future years. In regards to our maintenance program, I just wanted to mention we, as usual, are currently in the process of identifying all of our maintenance program for next year, and that will be going through our Board of County Commissioners, but when we have any contracts, you will be seeing those here next year, so you will see those. But essentially our budget allocation for next year is about $9.8 million, and that's very exciting. Most of the time we spend the bulk of that on paving and for curb and gutter and sidewalk improvements, and then chip seal and crack seal and some other various items. But again, as we spend that money, you'll see those contracts coming forth. And I just also want to mention we are showing a carry over of $1.5 million. If you remember our budget discussion in regards to Mark Shuffle North here, a couple months ago where we, the city and the county presented our joint budget summary. We talked about the county is reserving some maintenance funds for that box culvert that we want to repair on Long Mark Shuffle. So that's why we're carrying that forward. So we are trying to coordinate that with the city of Colorado Springs and some improvements that they're doing there. So that's why you're seeing that. And if you have any questions, any other questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
I just have one on this one Meridian 224. Is that the total, I mean, the combined project you were talking about over here, Meridian US 24?
Yes. And just to let you know, we also have some federal dollars for that project too. So the total project estimated cost on that project is about $10 million. So with the PPRTA 1 money, the PPRTA extension money, federal dollars, and then we also have some local county road and bridge funds that we're putting in to that project. So, and again, we're in right-of-way acquisition, and we should be into construction in 2018, which is very much needed.
Any other questions for Jennifer on the county's budget? Yes, sir.
Just a quick question, Jennifer. When do you think Eastonville Road will show up in the future on the budget allocation?
Well, at this point, we've actually budgeted the entire amount that we had anticipated when we originally put together the cost estimates for this project. At this point, I've budgeted everything. We are in the process. We are working. There's a developer out there who had some responsibilities as far as some improvements, and what we have an agreement with that developer that he'll be starting some of that design for us. Part of the issue is I didn't want him to put in some turn lanes at an intersection that we would then be ripping out with our project. So in lieu of him putting those turn lanes in, I've gotten them to pay for some of that and do some of that design work for us. We will be overseeing it and giving him the scope, just like we do for our other real design contracts, but that will be their contribution. And then, so essentially we're able to use more PPRTA money towards construction. But I anticipate that we'll be probably getting started on the design phase next year on a portion of that project, specifically from Stapleton up to, what's the school entrance up there, Londonderry? Yeah. So that will be the first phase of the project, and that's the one that we're kind of doing some coordination with the developer. So I think that that's a good way to work with them and make sure that we're not having them put improvements that we're throwing away.
Sure. Makes sense.
Yeah, very much so.
Any other questions for Jennifer? Thank you.
Thank you.
Bev, you going to cover Manitou and Raymond?
Right. So Shelley couldn't be here today for Manitou, but she outlines her maintenance carryover on page 29, and then combined with her new money of $297,000, they have a total maintenance budget of $372,000. And then each of the four capital projects is outlined there with, what their carryovers are and, what they've expended and what they plan, what's remaining. I don't know too much about the projects, but they're kind of self-explanatory. And so I really can't answer any questions for her, but I don't know if you have any.
Any questions, guys? We can, are they? Okay.
Yeah, we could email her.
Green Mountain Falls?
Okay. And then Green Mountain Falls just has the two capital projects, and they haven't really started on them yet. I don't know. Do you know if they're anything about those, Belvedere and Stilling Basins?
I can talk to the Belvedere. We, El Paso County, are working with them on the design. We're doing the design in-house and assisting them with that. We had anticipated moving forward with that this year. I think it will really go to probably bid next year. So the other one we've talked about assisting them with. I don't know where they are with that. They've had some changeover in their leadership there. And so yes, and so we will continue to work with them. But right now our priority is to help them get finished with Belvedere, and if they need our assistance with the other one, we'll be looking at if we have the capacity to help them. I mean, in general, if we've been able to, we've assisted them as much as possible.
And then the town of Rama, which is the next one, I think that El Paso County is planning on helping them with their crack ceiling project.
Yep, all 7,000. Oh, I'm excuse me, 14,000.
Well, the total there is 72,000.
All right.
Okay, so it's probably not a real big stretch of road. So.
All right, very good. Any questions on those three? All right, Bev, you want to quickly?
Okay, so then.
I forgot something. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to mention, in regards to El Paso County's budget, sorry, going back, I forgot to mention something. I had a big note on my thing, and I forgot. I oversaw it. But I just wanted to mention, as you know, West Colorado Avenue project is ongoing, and we've been working with our partners, Manitou and the City of Colorado Springs. We're currently re-looking at our budget. I just want to give you a heads up because we may at some point, and I told you this as we awarded the contract, need to come back for additional funds. And we will be working with the other entities in regards to that. But I just wanted to give you a heads up so that you knew. This year, we don't have any allocation to that right now. If we are able to identify what our needs are before the budget, goes to the board, we will be doing that. We still have some time here, and we will be briefing you. But I just want to give you a heads up because that's a likely thing, whether it happens this year or next year or the year after.
We know it's going to cost more.
Yes.
How much in with?
Yeah, exactly.
We're trying to get a handle on that, but I would have to say, I mean, I think I know the project has been impactful, but I think we've gotten a lot of good feedback, and it's a difficult project, and it's going relatively well. And I'm pretty proud of our staff. Dennis Barron, who's managing the project, is really doing a great job, and I just want to thank the city and the City of Colorado Springs, City of Manitou Springs. They've been great to work with. They've continually been at the table, and we are working hard to get that project done and as close to what we have allocated as possible.
Well, you were able to salvage that burnout historic house on the side of the creek bank there, right? I mean.
Thanks, Jim.
All right, all right, Bev, you want to quickly hit the administrative stuff?
Okay, so page 33 compares 2017 final administrative budget to 2018. And we'll have quite a bit of savings from the 2017 budget, but we will have to allocate a lot of it to the ballot measure costs. So that wasn't estimated when we had the budget. That came along way here at the end. So it's going to be like a line item transfer here at the end of the year once we know what it's going to cost for El Paso County to do that portion of the election.
Bev, with regards to it's item 5B on the ballot, what happens, because you will know, if I'm not mistaken, it's in time. Well, no, you may not. They may be ballot count and actually certified ballots, or I think they got 21 days. But regardless, you should have a very good idea. Theoretically, what you're going to present to the board next week and what we either do or don't recommend, how are you going to adjust the budget if 5B passes? Are we going to have to do another budget amendment
No,
for the second discussion in January?
No, because we are not. No, the way it is set up is that we'll have a cost in 2017 for the ballot costs, and it'll be like, 200 and something.
221,000.
So that'll come out of admin, and we have enough savings, so we're going to be fine there. Then, if it's approved for the I-25 gap, we won't start funding that until 2019.
Okay.
So it's not going to affect the 2018 budget. Because if you recall, it's going to be revenue over budget. I almost said excess revenue. I caught myself. Did you get revenue over budget for 2018 and 2019. So it'll.
But that, if it's revenue over budget and you're budgeting 100, you get 105, you're not going to budget that until 2019, even though you get it in 2018.
Yes, because it's carryover. We won't know.
You're not going to know it until 2 months into the next year.
No, which?
You're not going to know your total revenue.
How much your revenue is?
It's about, I thought it was
Because
3
there's a
months.
2 month lag, or 2 month
Yeah.
lag. So in, February or March, we will then know what our total revenue was in 2018.
Okay. All right, I just don't want to do 3 amended budgets next year.
So then,
We won't need to.
yeah. And the gross extra revenue, or the gross revenue over budget, you have to apply the .55 capital
Portion of
to
it.
that. So 100% of the 55% of the revenue over budget, would, if the voters approve this next Tuesday, would then be set aside. And then 12 months later, in February of 20, then you would know, you do the same math, the gross revenue over budget times .55, and 100% of that would then be dedicated to the gap. So we won't know that 2-year total until February or March of 2020.
And if there is no budget over, or is no revenue over budget, where does the money come from to fund what we're committed to? And by we, I mean the El Paso County, the city, the government entities that are involved in it.
There would not be any.
Commitment.
So my question was, is what happens if there is no revenue over budget? Where does the 25 million that CDOT's expecting out of us come from? By us, I don't mean PPRTA, I mean the area.
RTA and county, too.
Then our piece of that would never be realized under your scenario.
Without another ballot measure.
It would never materialize, so it would never, there just wouldn't, it would be zero, so zero would go to CDOT. Because this is a contingent offering, a contingent contribution.
And
It's dependent.
Okay.
My question is, since we're bailing out CDOT, why are we paying for the ballot measure? Why don't they pay for it?
Because we're the government that puts it on the ballot.
This is really sticking to my craw.
Yeah. Well, you and several others. So I think we're.
Bilking is for money.
Sort of along with the landscaping at Cimarron and I-25.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so, Ed, yes, sir?
Another question, different subject a little bit. In the administration area, where do we stand legally with the Fountain Walmart lawsuit? And is there any potential implications?
As you recall, the PPRTA and DOR as a team won at the district court, state district court level versus Walmart and Sam's. Walmart and Sam's appealed, and briefs are being prepared with a deadline of next week to be filed for some stage of the appeal.
And Rick, the second part of his question was any financial ramifications. Am I correct that if for some reason PPRTA should lose, then we would lose that revenue that's been collected to date and any future revenue?
No, just future.
Just future.
So it's impossible to return money because you'd have to return it to each purchaser.
True, yeah, okay.
Walmart doesn't keep it. Walmart's just a conduit.
Right, okay.
So it'd just be future. So then Bev would have to adjust her revenue projections going forward.
Okay. All right, any other questions? All right, so what I need is a recommendation that we approve to the board, recommendation for the 2018 draft budgets as submitted or with any changes proposed by this committee.
Move that we approve it as presented.
Okay?
Second.
And Tom, okay. Any further discussion? Reb?
I'd like to offer a friendly amendment to include the clarifications to be presented to the board next week, offered by Mike, with respect to specific issues that Jim brought up. Can we do that just by the record? Because we have a verbal record. Or do we have to word each one of the questions that Mike offered to bring forth further information on?
I think on the landscaping issue, my biggest concern was the pot, and I think we resolved my concern by Scott's comment about keeping the whole project cost in the same area. So if...
Were there any other issues?
Were there any other issues that I don't recall? That was it.
There was just a question on the trail. It wasn't.
Oh, yeah.
But that's an information type of thing versus it doesn't really change the budget.
Yeah.
So,
So we'll look forward for that information.
I withdraw.
Okay, you withdraw that. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. All right, next on the agenda, capital maintenance and public transportation contract, City of Colorado Springs.
Mike Chavez, City Engineering. Got 6 items for your review today. The first one is we're looking at purchasing 2 trailer-mounted crack seal applicators. Those are basically heating units that melt the sealant for crack seal operations for our maintenance, for operation and maintenance department. So that's coming out of maintenance funds.
Got a question on that one, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Am I correct in assuming that, if I remember rightly, 100% of the city's crack seal program is funded with RTA funds, right? So these wouldn't be used for any other funded projects other than RTA?
Let me let Corey answer these questions.
We got a major homeless camp to move through.
Good afternoon, everybody. Corey Farkas, Public Works, City of Colorado Springs. You are correct. Our crack seal programs, we have 2. We have an in-house program that is completely funded by PPRTA. We also have a contracted program that is also fully funded by PPRTA to get all of our crack seal done within the city. What we're doing here today is over the last 12 years, we've been utilizing a total of 4 city tar pots to get all of our in-house operations done. For the last several years, we've been cannibalizing all 4 of those units to try to keep 1, possibly 2 on the roadway. It's getting to the point where it's just impossible. So moving forward with our crack seal program, we're looking to purchase 2 new tar pots.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Before you run off, can I ask real quick why the purchase of this equipment is being done out of PPRTA maintenance and not out of city general fund?
So over the last year with City General Fund, we've purchased 8 brand new sweepers at $230,000 apiece and 13 new tandem dump trucks at $250,000 apiece. And that was all I was allocated. So with my allocation from the General Fund, they said, what do you need most? And we've had, our tandem dump trucks had over 250,000 miles on them. And those were the top of the list. So getting all of those pieces of equipment over the last year with our general fund dollars, this is something that is absolutely in need, but it wasn't going to be trumping the tandem dump trucks with the big dollar items. So.
Thank you, Tori.
Okay. The next item is for street or operation maintenance also, and that is to install 3 manholes on a section of pipe along North Carefree Circle. there's a 600-foot run there that they'll put these manholes in, and then in the future, they'll come back and line those. And we're finding that lining these pipes is a much more economical way of rehabilitating and keeping them in service rather than tearing them out.
So the manholes just allow you access for inspection and during the installation of the liner?
Yes, yeah, they need them.
How far in the future?
North Carefree is going to be paved with 2C funds next year, so we're going to have to get that thing lined pretty darn quick.
Okay, we're not talking 10 years down the road.
Nope.
Love the name of the contractor.
Okay. Any other questions for Corey on those two? The rest I should be able to handle. Next item is a change order for the Woodman Road project for Wildcat. We have the exemption there, but this change order is over $100,000, so we need to bring it to the board. And this change order is for replacing it's actually more like an 1,800-foot section of Woodman Road that we initially thought we could mill and overlay, but it just, upon further inspection and as time went on, it's just not going to hold up, so it would be a waste to do that. So we're going to have it replaced in the full depth, and that's on the southern edge of the southern side of the road, from about Sam's eastward to the gas station.
Okay.
Next item, number 4, it's the extension of NV5's contract where they provide program management help to the city. We discussed this earlier in the year. When we renewed it last year, we had been given direction that they wanted us to recompete it going into 18. We had some staff changes, and I did come, I believe, in the summer and asked that we be given another year. And so we're going to renew it going into 18. And that'll work nicely with recompeting the following year because some of their staff is working on several projects that are actually going to span from 17 into 18, and we should be wrapping up in 18. So that'll lend itself to recompeting next year. Next item is on the Centennial Extension. There's some property that we purchased, and there's some structures on there that need to be removed. The first contract is to assess and remove any hazardous material. It's usually asbestos material. We got a contract for $46,000 to do that work. And then the next item, we've got another contract with Iron Mountain Demolition to actually take the houses down, those structures, for $129,000.
Are those, what, about 6 to 8 blocks west of I-25 there on Pontiero?
These are the ones that if you get on Fontanero, if you go west and it, kind of dead ends there, there's the houses there at the end of the Fontanero. There's some houses there.
Is there any widening of Fontanero going to occur for the interchange?
Yeah, it'll be the west leg will be 4 lanes, so it'll be wider than what it is now.
Brian?
Mike, I hate to be a pain in the rear end, but on the NV5, and I do remember the background that you had talked about. The concern I have is, correct me if I'm wrong, please. If it looks like this is for 1.258 plus for 5 people, is that correct? Am I reading that right?
Yes.
So we're looking at a roughly $250,000 per person.
No, there's 2 or 3 people only making 50, and the manager's getting the rest.
Yep, that's how it works.
So yeah, yeah. No, so what we have there is we have project manager, and he's actually been with NV5 and on the RTA for many years, and he's very valuable because he's got a lot of history. Other than me, everyone else is new, so people don't remember. But he's very good and very effective in keeping these projects on schedule and on budget. So, I'm very confident, and yes, he is paid well. We also have 3 inspectors that are working on our projects and the bridge maintenance that they're helping us with, and then we have an admin person.
Okay, so like the manager and the support person, and then
Yes.
There will be a rebid this year, though.
Yeah, going into.
No excuses.
Yeah, no, it's.
Okay. All right. Any questions on any of those contracts as presented? Cheryl?
Mike, could you talk about why those buildings have to be demolished? I mean, what is going on West Fontenay?
They are, they're one in the way, and they basically will be, not so much we're building the road over them, but the slope easements get into them. So they, they're in the way. Because the road's going to be cut down quite a bit. So when you get the roadway and then you get slopes, there's no way of saving them.
So where's the cost to purchase those homes? Have they already?
We've already purchased them.
You had a question?
Yeah. I was just wondering how far the Centennial Extension is going to run. I know there used to be an old garbage dump in there.
Yes, so it runs from Fillmore all the way, and most of the road is built to roughly Van Buren, where you got a project started now, construction, that's going to fill in the little 600-foot gap. That'll make it complete from Fillmore to Van Buren. And then the remainder down to Fontenaro is slated for 2020. And part of that is we're waiting for the owner to clean that area up.
Okay. Any further questions from anyone? It's an approval item, so do I hear a recommendation to approve the capital maintenance project or contracts as presented by the city?
Move approval.
Reb?
Second.
Joan? Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Miss El Paso County, Jennifer.
Miss El Paso County, that's
El Paso County Engineer. We have two items for your consideration today. First one is Mark Shuffle South, and as I mentioned, we are closing out this project. We had an increase in the estimated cost for the relocation for the utility for the Magellan pipeline that was needed. And just to mention, kind of overall, we have several utility relocations out on Mark Shuffle South. Some of them came in over, but needed an increase. Some of them came in under. This is one that came in over. We will be bringing to you in future months some of those ones that came in under, just as a reporting item, just so that you know. But I just say overall, we have the project budget to be able to take care of this. The utility companies do these relocations. We reimburse them. They give their best estimate, but these are based upon actual costs. So not surprising. Some of them will be over. Some of them will be under.
There was a good description in your memo. Thank you.
And thank you very much. I love the map because it actually really makes everything clear.
Isn't my staff great? So, and then the second one is West Colorado Avenue, and this isn't an increase in the budget. If you remember, when we awarded Colorado Avenue project, we phased the funding for that project, and this is the funding that was allocated for this year, and so we're just encumbering that. Just wanted to be transparent as far as what we're doing. So this is essentially an increase in the encumbered funds, but this was identified as we awarded that contract. So if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
It's getting messy out there on that road. All right, any questions for Jennifer? Do I hear a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
So moved.
Joan? All right, and Joan, second? Joan? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for your consideration today.
Member governments, other reports, transit services. Hello, Brian.
Good afternoon. Brian Patulli with the City of Colorado Springs Mountain Metro Transit with your monthly transit report. For our fixed route services, we saw a slight decrease of almost 4.5% for September of this year as compared to September of last year. We're still way ahead of 2016 so far for this year, so we do anticipate finishing stronger than 2016 with regards to ridership. For ADA paratransit services, we saw a little over 13% increase for that same time period, and we saw a 4.25% decrease for our van pool services from September of this year to September of 2016. And a project update, the downtown transit station relocation project is moving forward. We're developing scopes of work for not only design that will come out sometime in the future, but also we're looking to hire something like a master developer, somebody to represent the city's interests, as well as work with the property owner's developer, since this is going to be a joint development project. So we have other staff working on that. And we've had some preliminary discussions with the property owner, and things are moving forward. There are a lot of moving pieces, and not much to report on as of right now. A lot of not much more to report other than we're working busily, creating scopes of work, and hope to have these RFPs out sometime soon. But so it's still moving.
Tony?
Yeah.
Tony, you had a question?
Where's it going to be?
It's going to be the southwest corner of Colorado and Sawatch.
Okay.
So where the well, yeah, there's we're looking at having 3/4 of the block. There are 3 parcels owned by 2 property owners, which have the surface parking on the northeastern corner of that. Yeah, so Unified Parking Unified Title has some of the parking there, and whoever owns the
Mitchell.
Yeah.
The Mitchell hairdressing thing right across the street.
Right across the street, it's parking for their students. But there's the possibility that could become part of this entire project. Yeah, I mean, there could be a structured parking facility there, which would benefit them, but also users of the transportation center, the transit center.
As some of you know, I participated in that steering committee or part of that group and over the years, and Transit did a real nice job. The city council included the approval of that in their consent decree, and it wasn't a chance to kind of really stand up, but Craig got up and got recognition for the committee, and the city council really appreciated the effort that went into that. And I would echo Brian's comment. The comments and concerns of the landowner are the biggest hurdle right now to try to get over. Is that right? We got a couple of guys that they want to do joint development, so it's figuring out how that works.
Well, it's the property owner of the 3/4 of the block that we want to put our transit center on. The family wants to retain ownership, but which is what makes it into more of a public-private partnership and joint development. But although we've been told recently that that could perhaps not be the case, so there could be an opportunity to purchase it outright, which would make the project a little bit more simple. But so it is still moving, and it's very dynamic.
Good. So. Any questions for Brian? Thank you, Brian.
All right, thank you.
City of Colorado Springs capital line item transfer for Mark Shuffle.
Mike Chavez, City Engineering. We have a line item transfer request. We're closing out some of the old RTA 1 projects. We've got a couple of program that have some money that we are finished with, so we'd like to move that to the North Mark Shuffle project, which is kind of was the agreed upon priority for our TA1 leftover surplus funds.
Any questions for Mike on these?
Quick question, when you, just to refresh my memory, when you say North Mark Shuffle, is that south of Woodman or north of Woodman?
It's actually everything north of Carefree.
Perfect, okay.
Do I hear a motion to approve the city's request?
So moved.
Joan had her hand up. You want a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes.
Reb, opposed?
Did you take both of them as a package?
No.
Just for the record, I'd like to hear Reb's reasoning if he's willing to, for opposing.
Transparency.
Pardon me?
Transparency.
Okay.
They are open-ended type funds. And yes, we're coming to the end of, basically, we should have been done with this a long time ago. Any projects like this, they are not specifically designed.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I don't have any problem with where the money's going.
All right, we have another request for a line item transfer for Woodman Road.
Okay, this is, again, dealing with RT1 projects. There were several city projects that we have finished, and as we're closing out, there are some remaining funds. We are requesting that those funds be moved to the Woodman project, Phase 1 project. In essence, this will cover that change, or, I mean, we have the money, but it kind of leaves us close. So this will help supplement the funds as we finish out Woodman. And again, when anything left over from Woodman will then be moved to Mark Shuffle.
I hear a motion. Any questions, discussion?
So moved.
So moved for Joan. Tony? Hey, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. City Colorado Springs monthly change order, property acquisition, information only.
So any questions, just our monthly report?
Any questions on the change order report for the city? All right, thank you very much,
All right,
Mike.
thank you.
Rick, summary of recent board actions.
Good afternoon, Rick Sonnenberg, PPRTA Program and Contracts Manager. You have the information item from the board meeting last month. Do you have any questions? Okay, just an information item.
All right. Ballot measure.
B, how about B?
Oh, B. What about
Draft
B?
board policy?
Oh, draft board, maybe we're in wrong order, sorry. Draft board policy number 28.
This is coming to you due to a recent situation where City of Colorado Springs encountered a private garage that was partially constructed some decades ago into the now city right-of-way, which Mike Chavez can give you more details. That it used to be, I think Mike told us, a state right-of-way. But and the city wanted to construct a sidewalk, and a corner of the garage is in the way. So the issue was, should the property owner be forced to tear down his garage at his expense? Should the expense be split? Or should the PPRTA pay 100% of demolishing the garage and building a new garage a few feet away to get out of the right-of-way? And the city staff chose the last option, that the PPRTA would pay 100% of demolishing the garage and building a new one a few feet away, off the right-of-way. I had a question about this, so under Board Policy 18, staff can take questionable items, invoices like this, to the policy group called the Policy 4, which is the board chair, board vice chair, CAC chair, and CAC first vice chair, and ask them how they feel about it. And and Jim and Reb can represent themselves as to how the conversation went last month at the board prep lunch prior to the board meeting. But I'd summarize it to say that the four of them had serious reservations about paying 100% of the demolishing and reconstructing the garage, but since the city staff had already negotiated and made a commitment to the property owner, go ahead and pay this one, but to bring a draft policy to the CAC and the board to have an open discussion about what should happen in similar situations in the future. So that's the draft that's before you for discussion. And Mike can certainly represent himself on behalf of the city. So it's on the floor.
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
When you say decades, how many decades are we talking? Over 18 years?
Probably, but Mike can answer that.
I'm not sure we knew it's been there. I know when I was working for the city back in late 90s that garage was there.
Well, the reason why I ask 18 years is I'm sure that your folks at the city have advised you about the adverse possession clause. That if something is there for 18 years, nobody says anything about it, he owns it.
Except that doesn't apply to city right-of-ways. They can't do it.
Converted state right-of-ways.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't apply.
Okay. So in this particular case, what was the reasoning?
So basically,
It doesn't apply.
So typically there have been we've run into right-of-way encroachments quite a bit. They're usually more along the lines of fences and garden stuff. And when we go in with the project, we usually will put everything back to the right-of-way at the project cost.
Was the structure permitted?
We're not sure. Probably not, because it was there's no setback. So, but I guess the long story short is just we just didn't feel that we wanted to impose the city's powers on a property owner or homeowner. So we worked out a deal and we also didn't want to get into the whole permitting process and all that. So instead of going out and getting it permitted for him, building it, we just figured we got two appraisals, went with the lower one, or not appraisals, but we got three quotes, went with the lowest one, and offered that negotiation with him. He accepted. I think probably the part where maybe didn't think about it is typically projects cover the cost of these cost to cures, but Rick had a concern and a legitimate question: why did we do it 100%? We just felt that was the most equitable to him, but that's why we're going to have this policy, so we bring those beforehand.
The concern I would have is that we don't set a precedent that just because of goodwill, we go in and say, hey, we don't, you're in the wrong here, but we're going to pay you anyway just because we don't want to.
Yeah, well, like I said, this is very common to rectify these. It's usually more along just putting fences back on the proper line. This is rare, and we don't anticipate too often, but, to have a structure is a little bit,
Rick?
Well, if that's the case, then I think maybe the city ought to pay for it. I mean, I don't go along with the fact that just because he built in the right of way that the RTA ought to pay for it. If the city wants to do it, then you guys pay for it.
Well, again, this is something that happens a lot. Usually not to this extent, but on Woodman Road, we had to pay for, cost to cure to move fences and maybe in a shed or two. And in that case, the project paid for it. And in that case, it was more federal and RTA funds. So it just kind of, the project funds usually take care of these things. In this case, there's some.
Why did you come to us before you?
Well, like I said, that's why, yeah. Because like I said, we've done this before. RTA's paid for relocations before. It's never been an issue, but it's just a little bit different.
I think the city ought to pay for it this time, and in the future, we'll look at it then.
Mike, if you look, this as it's written, I want to change it and include fencing, and the reason I do that, The specific project is on our Airport Road, goes from approximately Shelton, and actually includes the golf course, which has its fence in the right way. But the fence was previously up, when I say previously, within 46 inches of the curb. I don't care, even if it's state highway, that's well within whatever right-of-way. So whenever the city took over, and I have no record of when the city took it over from the state, I have no record of it being in the state from the local government sources. The point is, there is at least 1,800 feet of privacy fence, some of it within 46 inch of the back of the curb, and literally you're putting up a brand-new fence for all of those homeowners, most of which had been significantly damaged in heavy winds like 3 or 4 years ago, some of which had just been stood back up. You talked about Woodman Road. The cost of these fences, are you including that in the cost of a project? Because this was done under the closing the gap in sidewalks.
Typically, we take account those costs. Sometimes it comes in the appraisal.
Because I'm going to move my fence and I'm going to put it on the damn sidewalk right now, because I know you're coming through there someday. No, I'm serious. If you go to Woodman Road, that was a lot more expensive. I just put up 68 foot of fence. The materials alone were about $800 for the same type of fence, and they would have been more if I'd done 1x6s like this was done. And I have photos if anybody wants to see it. But they are now up, I assume, on the right-of-way line. And they're in steel posts, which is more expensive than my inexpensive treated posts. And I don't feel it's right that the city should be expected to pay if I don't care whether it was done 30 years ago. And I know for a fact that the garage is not on the assessor's list. So it's never been assessed. I'm not questioning your judgment. As a matter of fact, I know. But I don't think fences should be excluded. If you've put it in, quote, my right-of-way, I'm not paying to take it off my right-of-way. I'll pay to take it off. I'm not replacing it. You replace it with whatever you want.
Well, I would be against including fences because, like I said, especially on older neighborhoods, encroachment like that are very common. And when we come back with a project, whether it's city funds or RTA or federal, we usually put it back as a project expense to make it whole. We've done a lot of work in the, not the Cragmore neighborhood, but the one south of there, which is lower income. And to say that, we're going to stick those people with a cost, that they probably didn't even put there originally. Like I said, it just been common practice for, if we need to rectify the right-of-way and relocate fences, we do that at project cost.
When I bought my house, there were a fence, and a fence between my property and yours.
Mm-hmm.
I was informed by the realtor as well, but then I went and checked. There is an 8 or 10 foot easement, and it varies and it's, quote, in, quote, a development where the same person built both sides of it. If you come in for utility, repair, whatever, anything that's in that 8 or 10 foot right-of-way, including my fence, and when I say that, I'm not even sure we are now on the property line, but you don't pay for it as a utility. So why does the city street people have to do that?
Well, like I said, you're talking side lot and back lot easements.
Right.
Which is a little different than the right-of-way in that. Like I said, we usually don't need to do this, but in case we do.
So could I talk you into paving an alleyway there?
Anyway.
Joan?
I move recommendation policy 28 as presented.
Second.
I want to amend it.
Further discussion.
I move amendment, the thing, and include fencing because of the cost. When I say that, you have Woodman Road, and if you look on I'm going to consider it the south side, east of the Sam's Club, that is considered a fence, but it's actually stucco masonry, and you're redoing what?
We added to it.
Oh, you actually moved it back in some places.
No, we just added to it.
No.
And that was for sound. That was kind of a sound mitigation requirement.
Two rows of brick on top of it, I think, or 3 rows.
I won't accept the amendment.
You what?
Okay.
I didn't hear.
She said she won't accept the amendment. Okay.
Friendly amendment,
We're all saying,
There's no second on the amendment.
is the problem that we're using PPRTA funds? Because you're saying
Yes.
you're going to pay for the fence anyhow. That's part
Well,
of
the project funds usually we included, whether it's federal.
The problem here is the word PPRTA funds.
Well, actually, I think the difference is here, is this was a structure and not the normal garden or fence or that kind of stuff. That's a couple of $100 here and there. This was a $31,000 garage, and it was a structure versus a normal fence or something that they would replace. And so I think that's what caught our attention in the Policy 4 meeting was, one, it's a structure and the price. The other routine stuff we never hear about, it's in the weeds compared to a total project cost kind of stuff. So this policy would not preclude them from doing, as the way I read it, would not preclude them from doing what they normally do with sections of fencing and gardens and this, that, and another, but it would preclude them from purchasing a structure.
Without coming.
Coming here first.
And the city's very supportive of this. I mean,
right.
it's one of those live and learn things.
My motion is as presented.
And I'm just throwing this out for something for consideration. A 50 to 60 foot section of fence to replace it can run to $2,500, $3,000, so they can get up there and get expensive. But I understand the reasoning for saying structure rather than a fence.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
One more comment.
All right. I want to add one thing. This policy isn't, quote, necessarily for our benefit. I want you to keep in mind that Rick is guided by the board policy. In other words, the board is replaced. Joan is term limited as a CAC member. The board is term limited. Ultimately, the decision is theirs. So basically, Rick's basing his decisions, any recommendations here, or anything that gets to us and to the board, comes based on those policies. All right? We went through policy number six about and went back and listened to recordings and what the reasoning was for the narrowing or diminishing.
Traffic taming.
Traffic calming or whatever you want to call it. But regardless, the purpose of the policies is basically to give Rick backup for why he's questioning something or why it comes before the board and the CAC in the first place. Because we're all moving. In other words, we're going on.
Well, and I think that we're all aware of that, and I think that if the city has presented its side with Mike and about the fencing and so forth, that I think we just simply go forward with this.
Okay. One last comment. Gene had his hand up.
Well, my concern on this is why PPRTA funds are used to fix a problem of a member municipality or government entity, because they didn't do what they were required to do with regard to encroachments on right-of-ways. I don't think PPRTA funds should be, one nickel should be spent on this if it is an encroachment into a right-of-way.
Can we handle those
All
as
right.
two separate?
Yeah. So what your point is well taken.
It is.
But the deal that caused this whole issue to begin with is done. We're going forward now. And so those are the kind of questions that we would ask for future things coming forward. But I think everyone that was involved in this is in agreement with that.
All right.
Within that statement.
So there's no fixing this one here?
It's done.
Unfortunately, it's
done deal. Okay. So we have a motion and a second on the floor to approve policy number 28 as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Who was the second nay?
Gene?
Tony.
Not me.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. All right.
I meant second, not
It?
that.
I didn't vote
Yep.
against.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Ricky, you want to cover ballot measure 2?
Yes. And 10 and 11, and
Yes, finish us up.
and Jennifer has something to share on 11. The ballot measure, everything's in place. If you haven't voted already, feel free to vote. Deadline's next Tuesday. So we'll see what the voters decide on the PPRTA ballot measure. This is just an information item.
Go ahead.
So it's just information. So we're all set for November 7th, just waiting to see what the voters say. Ready for D?
Yes.
D?
D.
Appointment, reappointment of CAC members. I think everyone knows, let's see, everybody listed on the page, Scott, Ed, Cindy, Brian West, Jim Knoll, Jake, and David all know that they need to apply for reappointment if they'd like. By the way, Dr. Jim Knoll has notified me that he is not requesting reappointment, so we will need to do the usual board certificate of appreciation either December or January. Dr. Knoll's at-large regular seat will be open. The board directed me to advertise. We have advertised. I've received 2 applications from folks that are not currently on the CAC, and I've also received applications from current at-large CAC members and at-large alternate CAC members. So the process that happens and the deadline for those is November 6th, Monday. And what happens after that is, according to board policy, is there's a subcommittee of the board and the CAC leadership. It's comprised of 3. It's the board chair, board vice chair, and the CAC chair. Those 3 will hold a meeting sometime in November, go over the applications for at-large regular and at-large alternate seats, and they will develop a recommendation to the full board at the December meeting, December 13th. So no action needed today, but just all of you. So the at-larges have to apply through me to go to the board, but the CTAB, HAC, and Tanorama, you have to apply through your member government for reappointment by them.
Have we sent a letter, like some kind of formal thing to the member governments that are lacking representation?
No.
Would love to have them participate.
Let's see, and those are 2 seats at Manitou and 1 at Green Mountain Falls. No, I think I've held off because there's a mayoral race in Manitou, so I didn't want to bug Nicole, but yeah, that mayoral race is next Tuesday. But I will certainly make a note to do so in the coming weeks.
Their input, their input, I think, would be valuable to
So if your name's on the list and you want to be back, get your request in. That's the best thing. And if you're on a member government thing, you might want to remind your member government. Okay, real quick, any topics for next meeting?
Yes, I have 2.
Wait,
I have 2.
Oh,
okay. And yeah, there's 2 agenda topics for next meeting. Corey has agreed to make a quarterly presentation, or maybe it's for the whole summer, a presentation on Tuesday. Nice. And Karen Rowe, the CDOT district manager, has agreed to attend at your December 6th meeting and give an update on CDOT projects, particularly the I-25 gap, with or without the PPRTA's voter-approved contribution. And even if the voters approve it, as Gene pointed out, the money may or may not materialize, even though. So, Yeah, those are the two that I have for next time.
Anything else from anybody on next meeting?
I think you brought up such a good point, about, is there a policy with regard to what PPRTA will pay for? And maybe we ought to have a discussion on those structures and things like that fall outside of, the scope of what.
Ooh, what a slippery slope.
I'm not following the comment.
I was going to say, that's what policy 28 did.
Depends on what comes out of the policy. But I think it's not fair or should be spelled out so the city and also county and the other entities know that they, before paying, they have to bring it before.
That's what 28 does.
Okay, well, I guess I'm not explaining myself very well. Let me step back. Is there anything that we need to add to, I fully endorse policy 2028.
Yes.
But should there be more delineation?
That's a slippery. That's a slippery slope in micromanagement of the things, and so, you bring up a point, but the checks and balances in this process reside with the staff. When the municipalities submit their invoices of whether they think this is out of reason. And this is only one of several that are, did we ever resolve the?
No.
So there are issues in which the member governments submit invoices in which there contains items that the staff think are borderline or out of bounds, and they're called to question, research done on them, and submitted, and if necessary, get referred back to us. So the checks and balances and the expenditures take place at the staff daily.
Go ahead.
Is that right?
Yeah, well, there's 4 layers.
But I guess if you're submitting an invoice for Rick to review,
Yeah.
and they've already paid it, what good is that?
When we say no, then the municipality pays for it out of their money.
That-
In this case, yeah.
Occasionally, maybe on average, once every other year, the member government is told, we aren't paying it, so you have to find the funds out of non-RTA funds. In other words, you have to eat it. So the 4 levels of accountability are budget, which you see and the board sees. Contracts, which you see and the board sees. Invoices, which staff sees, and a check register with one-line description and dollars of the invoices to the board chair and board vice chair. That's the 3rd level. Questionable invoices, I take to the policy foursome. And then the 4th level is my field drive around quarterly to double check stuff. Those are the 4 layers of accountability.
And that's an important piece of information for all of us to know in case some other folks don't too. So, okay, communications. Rick, you said you
I have a couple things, and Jennifer has one. The board of directors has decided to change their start time on their Wednesday to 2 o'clock instead of 1:30. In case you want to attend in the future, starting next Wednesday, it'll be 2 o'clock instead of 1:30. Some of the new members on the board had other meeting conflicts, and 2 o'clock was a better start time. The other item is the PPACG executive search process. The board selected search committee, which was comprised of some board members, some out of the building folks, and 3 staff members, a total of 10, reviewed semifinalists with the goal of announcing per state law, as the state law says, for executive positions in government, you have to announce your finalists 14 days ahead of making a job offer. So we were waiting to make that announcement until the semifinalists became the finalists. Well, we had some withdrawals of the semifinalists to the point where we did not have enough potential finalists to have the board interview them in public on November 8th. That was 6 months away, and now it's a week away. So since we don't have enough candidates to announce finalists, for the board to interview finalists, we did not announce, and therefore there will be no interviewing of candidates next Wednesday in public or private at the November 8 PPCG meeting, so that the entire action of interviewing and selecting an executive director on the 8th is off the agenda, and most likely going to be referred back to the search committee to move further down on the priority list and talk about or talk to some of the other folks further down on the list.
And all this is the result of state regulation?
No, just the announcement is state regs.
That the delay was?
Because a couple pulled out.
Yes, the delay is couple pulled out.
Okay.
Jennifer's turn.
Communicate with us, Jennifer.
Jennifer Irvin, County Engineer, for the record. I just wanted to mention to you so that you are aware, and Karen Rowe will probably talk to this a little bit more next month, but we have been working, El Paso County, along with many other stakeholders on the I-25 GAP project. And as many of you know, we've been working on that pretty hard. One of the things that has occurred over the past couple of months is not only have we been working with CDOT, but we've also been working through our I-25 GAP coalition. All this to say is that as you had heard last month, we were going to have some meetings in October in regards to the I-25 PEL. As a result of some of the coordination that has been going on with the member stakeholders, they had rescheduled that. And part of the reason is because they're extending the PEL, and they're not stopping on the work on the PEL, but what they've done is they've gone back. As a result of some of the meetings, they've been able to identify the need to move forward with the improvements on the GAP, which shouldn't be a surprise to any of you. But what that has done is that they have started the NEPA process in parallel with the PEL.
PEL is the environmental?
Yeah, but the NEPA process for the GAP. So they are accelerating the GAP, essentially, and starting the NEPA process. And in conjunction with that, El Paso County has taken the lead, and we are applying for a federal grant, the INFRA grant, that is due tomorrow. And we have been working with CDOT and our partners, and RTA and City of Colorado Springs and Douglas County to be able to prepare that grant, and it is being submitted as we speak. So we are asking $65 million through from the federal government on that grant, and being matched with money from the Transportation Commission that has been approved if we win this grant, and it will also include, dependent on the PPRTA, it identifies that funding if it is to materialize, also identifies the money from El Paso County if it's to materialize, and Douglas County has also committed $10 million. So we are submitting that grant today, and I expect that we will hear about that early next year.
Go ahead, Brian.
Just if that money does not materialize, that's is the grant contingent on that money materializing? In other words, does it go away?
I believe that if the funding does not materialize and these ballot issues do not go forward, that we, the funding partners, will go back and have a discussion. But the grant isn't contingent upon that, although we say that we're going to have local funds. If we don't have those funds, we will have to work and find a alternate funding to bridge that gap. But at that point, it's going to be $25 million versus $350 million. So I feel confident that as we move forward, we'll figure that out. The other part I just want to mention to you is the other good news is that CDOT has actually accelerated the project by over a year. And so we are working very hard. CDOT has dedicated staff, and so have all of the member jurisdictions that have to deal with all the environmental clearances. So I'm very excited because they are starting the NEPA process, which is why they wanted to push off that meeting. We are moving forward. They have actually identified the project delivery process, which is going to be a CMGC contract, which means that we will be having a contractor hopefully on board in January 2018 to help through that design process to be ready in the fall of 2018 for construction. That is dependent upon funding.
Okay, so I've got a question, and it has to do with why is El Paso County taking the lead on this and not Douglas County? Is it because our residents are more impacted than because that's a fairly unpopulated section of Douglas County? So why we've got 2 miles in this process, why are we taking the lead on doing all that?
We're taking the lead, and we're being the sponsor. Essentially, we El Paso County, not PPRTA, but El Paso County will have an intergovernmental agreement if that grant is awarded with CDOT, and they will essentially administer that from an awardee standpoint through the federal process. We have seen more funding through that grant process go to local governments versus state DOTs. And what I would say is that we are showing a partnership. So although El Paso County is the sponsor and the lead, you have to name a sponsor and the lead. Douglas County has been right there with us the entire time. So we will have, all these other stakeholders, and we have letters of support to support that application. CDOT will essentially administer the grant. We're just showing El Paso County. And I think that that's a strategic move on behalf of those three main jurisdictions, Douglas County, El Paso County, and CDOT, because those local jurisdictions have been have been awarded the grant money more often than the state DOTs.
I get the local government piece of it. We got 2 miles invested in this thing, and Douglas County's got the rest of it. But if you look at the population that's most affected, it's the people in El Paso County and south that are impacted by that. So if we win, that's great. I was just curious.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think that irrespective, I think the project needs to be done and Commissioner Waller has been here to discuss that. I don't need to discuss that, but I think that the bottom line is that the project needs to be done. El Paso County is happy to take the lead and show how we can lean forward and get the job done.
Good on you. Brevin, then.
Jennifer, could you clarify something? About 2 weeks ago, it was public media. I heard a figure of 260 to 262 million by CDOT has been located. Put that number, Justin, we're just talking approximate. First of all, I've been to several of the meetings, and I've heard figures anywhere from $300 to $500 million. First of all, they're a ballpark figure. You don't have a clue what you're going to come up with for a final design, so I don't put anything to it. But based on your $260 million that CDOT's come up with, potential dollars from PPRTA and El Paso County, the $65 million grant is some of that money that, quote, El Paso County might come up with, or PPRTA, does that have to match that? Or is that a straight out $65 million, and that's in addition to the 260, or where does the 65?
So the total estimated cost at this point for what we've initially identified for the gap, That's $350 million.
Okay.
So of that $350 million is $260 from the state, $10 million from Douglas County, assumed $10 million, assuming, again, this is all language in the application, so assuming PPRTA, $15 million from El Paso County, and did I miss any? I think I got it all. 250 from CDOT, yeah. Oh, did I say 260? I'm sorry.
Is 250?
250 from CDOT, 65 for the federal infra grant, 10 million PPRTA, 15 El Paso County, and 10 Douglas County. So,
Make the 350.
yes. So I will say that is strategic because there are certain amounts, guidelines for those infra grants, and we are showing that we are asking for less than approximately 20% from the federal government, and that is strategic in regards to hopefully making sure that we receive that grant.
This doesn't remove the argument. This is a federal interstate highway. You know, so 65K, 20% of the project, it's your damn road. You know?
I will let others argue. I'm just letting you know that we are submitting that grant with the support of all the entities.
Okay, clarification.
Good on you.
I have heard both ways. This is also recent public media, and I've not bothered because I knew what was coming. Is it going to be a high occupancy or toll, or just a regular lane, the third lane?
High occupancy, you pay for.
The paper said toll.
Well, that's what I mean. Words have meaning, and I had never heard. I heard it early on in the discussions of what the plans were.
High occupancy toll.
It's a combination, because in some areas, high occupancy is not toll, it's just high occupancy only.
Right.
And then in some areas, some people have chosen
Well,
to actually make
are
it
they?
toll.
Are they? It's just now under consideration? At one time, it was one of Karen's people said it was not being considered.
It's being considered.
Okay.
Adjourn.
Before anybody else raises their hand.